So welcome and thank you very much, colleagues, for your time and attention. This is our monthly update of a specific project, the International Safety Equipment Association's standard for eye washes and emergency showers. We do promise a 30-minute teleconference. It's my hope that we'll stay within that time constraint. I want everyone to know that we do record these for on-demand access for others. I'm happy to be able to introduce a colleague from the American Society of Healthcare Engineers, and once he's finished with his introduction, we'll start launching into our teleconference, and we hope to be done by in about 20 minutes. So, John, do you want to say a little something about yourself?
You bet. My name's Jonathan Flannery. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Advocacy for the American Society for Healthcare Engineering, which is a personal membership group of the American Hospital Association.
Thanks, John. And so you might be aware that we're working on we actually have a collaborative website here. I won't bring it up here, but U of M has been coordinating quite a bit with ISEA to get some of our ideas across, so and to meet our advocacy goals. So in this particular case now, as I try to mention also, Jonathan, that these are very unrehearsed, they're unvarnished. We go through our issues quickly. They're intended to be coordination teleconferences, so everybody knows what the other work groups are doing, and then a lot of work actually gets done off-site. So what I'll do here is keep in mind that we'll have another teleconference in October. There'll be some developments since that. Between now and then, there'll be a fair amount of action off to the side, and we'll report what we did over the past month on October 22nd. So I don't give people more than a day or two notice, so be aware that we have these all scheduled for the remainder of the year. I thought that we'll only have enough time to look over the rejection letters. Recall that the University of Michigan was collaborating with APA, the trade association. U of M brokered to have APA have its own vote. That vote was cast by Richard Davis out of Evergreen State College, and of course we brokered to arranged to have our own vote from the University of Michigan hospitals. Some of what the answer from ISEA committee will probably inform some of the action that ASHE would like to proceed with, particularly in the matter of what maintenance failures we're having on eye washes. So that seemed to have been a theme here in some of their letters. So what I'll do then is get to the University of Michigan. First of all, I'll mention to you here that this was the ballot that was submitted by Richard Davis. I guess it doesn't contain any of his technical specifics. Here was Richard's statement to the ISEA committee, and in general, the thinking here was that we wanted to relax the weekly requirement for testing to monthly, or at least risk-informed. And of course, this was rejected. And the next part of the process was, and I'll cut to the chase. Richard had a response to that. U of M had a similar negative vote. Excuse me, let's see. Let me go back over here. So we had a similar negative vote. Maybe I should cut over to what ISEA said to Richard on his. So here, I'll try to cut to the main points, is that he felt that the study that U of M commissioned might not have been appropriate for this particular technology at this moment. And so the ISEA seems to acknowledge that there may need to be further study may reveal the intervals greater than monthly, as you suggested, may be appropriate. For the current revision, however, no change to the weekly interval will be made. So when we cut over to the U of M rejection, there's a little more granularity in the rejection, and it had to do with while we might have solved the bacterial problem in the water, there's a mechanical issue that ISCA wanted to capture. So, and I think that's where you might want to pipe in, Jonathan. So let me get you to the IS, and let us get to that specific issue of the mechanical, confirming the mechanical reliability or availability of the equipment to meet its safety obligation. So let's see here. I think we're, with regard to your comments, okay. So we dealt with that, but in general, that it's what's necessary is that this standard is not just this requirement for the weekly testing is not just for bacteria, it's also for the mechanical performance of the eye washers and the emergency showers. And at this point, I'm going to pick around through here a bit, John, to get the specific language that was mentioned here. Would you have a few minutes to reflect a bit on what ASHI is seeing in the mechanical availability of eye washers and eye showers here?
You bet. You know, having maintained multiple hospitals throughout my career, I can speak to my personal experiences. You know, I cannot think of a single time where I've had a mechanical failure of an eye wash, nor an emergency shower, which of course are tested less frequent than the eye washes. So again, the weekly test seems to be just a redundancy of doing the same thing over and over again and doesn't produce failure rate. As we've discussed previously, Mike, it would probably be a very good thing if we could actually get some data from some of our members for current stuff, and that's something that ASHI is willing to do. We just haven't gotten around to getting that done.
Okay, well then that is a path forward as we begin to approach this, the next revision, which would be 2019. I think it's a 5-year interval. There's many things that we can do at the local and state levels to inform the way this document is adopted. So for example, if you are able to come across with more specific mechanical performance data, we would compile that and we can represent that to ISCA, and they may be willing to understand or accept what we'll call an interim revision. There's a number of those that go on. They meet periodically. They're a Class A organization. I think they'd be willing to do that. If that's rejected, then of course we begin approaching other agencies, the Joint Commission among them, local and state safety agencies, and say we're not against safety, but we have 50 different safety vectors to reconcile, and in light of our grim resources, we have to find out where we can put risk management in proportion to the whole risk space that we have to deal with. So that's my kind way of saying that we hope that we'll come, let's set a goal for ourselves within a year. You think that might be possible, Jonathan, to come up with operational data from ASHI within a year?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So I know you and I talked about that at the NFA conference, but I understand how other events can crowd you out. So that would solve that particular issue. You're probably not, if you go elsewhere on this website, you'll see that we do have the, here's a water quality survey, and since this is your first call in on this particular issue, you'll see that U of M did pay one of our public health professors to go through and test water at a number of locations. So we felt that we wanted to challenge the original study about water quality. We understand that it's very site specific, but in general in hospital settings you're likely to have higher water quality rather than a nuclear facility in Tennessee back in the 40s. That was where some of the original baseline information was taken. So there's no shortage of study on this. So if you go over here, you'll see.
It would be interesting if that's the basis for the data. It would be interesting just to see what current data with the current drinking water standards and improvements that we've had since the 40s, and how that's impacted it.
Yeah. No, I think there was some there was some other, the installation was built, I think Oak Ridge was built in the 40s, and there's water quality there at that particular time, but I think it's the same municipal system or the same installation system that was being used in this. So we don't have time to go through all those studies. We covered them in the past, but in general, that is we could go after water quality. There's an outstanding issue that when I've listened to safety professionals talk about this, is that you have the quality of water coming in the building, but then you have different piping types depending how old the building is. That an older building would likely have many different piping types: iron, plastic, other types of piping, and they can get very animated about what they think is better, what's better for bacteria, what works better in life cycle. But we know that in hospital settings particularly, that may not be the same type of management or the water quality as say a school. Remember that these eye washes are also going in high school chemistry classes and physics classes. So when we talk about the education facilities industry, we span across a larger part of the economy and affected square footage. So that's one area where we can get more granular. So I think the committee, my sense here is that the committee is open to rational rational proposals based on data. But remember, there are some structural issues with all of these trade associations, and I guess I'll jump to that. So in any case, to summarize, what we can do then is that U of M will coordinate with ISEA to get this data. We'll couple our bacteria data with your mechanical performance data. We actually have some of our own. You're welcome to do that. And this growing network, you're probably aware of the some of the new committees that U of M is trying to get developed within existing 501c3 organizations. We're trying to get that are already standards developers. We're trying to get them a little bit better organized to help drive value into the U of M balance sheet, which we think will help the entire industry. So that much said, there's the structural issue that that we tend to be dogged by, and I'll present on the screen here what I consider to be the gold standard for identification of interest groups, and I'll call it the NFPA, because if you'll notice here in their rejection is that they disagree. They're not required to do it, and they're right. They're not required by ANSI's essential requirements to state what the interest categories are. You can make them available upon request. Evidence of balance must be demonstrated on the paperwork provided ANSI. So it's not my intention to be contentious here, but I will hold up an example of how I think it's a little bit better. And I think the NFPA does a pretty good job when they do their classifications of interests. As you can see here, they try to establish, I think these are experts. This might be insurance industry. This is user. Now remember, a user looks like it's an energy company, but it also be somebody who's actually using the book to sell or teach a course. So that's one area also that I'm a little concerned about. Users should be people identified as the final fiduciary authority, the guy who's paying for all these good intentions, as opposed to an instructor for a fire safety class. So anyway, that's my statement on how I believe that most ANSI standards should develop. I believe that we should be trying to get them all to identify their interests, and in some cases there are sources. I have many other rosters I could show. It's not my intention to show the imbalance. If anybody wants to talk to me privately about what the rosters of some of the ASHRAE or NSF committees are, I'm happy to let you see that. Suffice to say that the person who's actually paying for all this is rarely at the table, and that's our point here. This is probably the first time that ISEA has seen our face and been active in trying to get some of these requirements rolled back to a level commensurate and in proportion to the other risks we face. So that's kind of these are up there for everyone to have a look at. I'm looking at one that that came from our housekeeping staff here. There was a claim that if you're cleaning the inside of a toilet that's enclosed, and typically they are, that that you can't always get to within a few, get close to a permanent eye wash. So your recommendation that a portable eye wash bottle be immediately available to workers using strong acids. They feel that that this has some merit. It looks like they're going to be making some adjustments to this, not mandatory of course, but there's a recognition that if you're trapped in you're cleaning a toilet, you're trapped in the stall, that you need to be able to get to it, and they want to propose some resolution to this. So that came from the housekeeping, the custodial industry here. There was another request that we made. We felt that we didn't want to be changing. I believe there's a 1-year life on the sterility of independent eye washes. Are you familiar? Are you familiar with that, John?
Yes. Yep.
What are your thoughts here? We believe, I believe that they have to be changed out every year, and here's us taking a long shot trying to say, can we use the standard to drive some innovation among the manufacturers to get them to last twice as long? Any thoughts on that?
Well, our contention within the healthcare industry is saline doesn't go bad. I mean, it's saline.
Oh.
It's a saline solution. It doesn't, unless it gets a bacterial growth within it. If it's sealed properly and maintained properly, it will never go bad. So why does it have an expiration date, period? It's kind of like alcohol-based hand rubs. As long as there's alcohol-based hand rubbed in the bottle, it is good.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to go bad. Why is there expiration dates on them at all?
Fair point. Okay, so you very quickly got to the limits of my knowledge, so I'm glad you added some color there. So you keep giving me more reason why we want to ask for interim amendments. Okay, so let's see here. We were asking also regarding a comment you made, producer interests. Okay, this is more a restatement saying that we felt that in the ISEA process, which is an accredited process, and you know, I travel among 50 of these groups, that they're a pretty classy outfit, and they're conforming to the rules. But the rules themselves, we could ask harder questions about when manufacturers when manufacturers form a trade association, write the first draft of a standard, and then open it up for public review by a balance of interests, as ISEA does, that's a different kind of standard development process than, say, an NFPA process, where almost for large parts of the public input is coming in from the open public and not from a core group of materially affected constituents. So this is certainly better than the alternative, but as I've been reminded by the ISEA staff, that it's not quite the same process. It's not the same technology. So can they ever get there? Can we get ANSI, or can we get other trade associations to say, why don't you open up and receive more public input? Well, it could well be that there's not enough knowledgeable people to do that. So it's quite right to say that manufacturers, they understand their technology better. They want to be in business. They don't want to overtax their customers. And then there's a fair point to be made there. So our comment there only had to do, and it's easy to say it was a cynical comment. We'll have to live with that. But it's an intention to how do we get a balance of materially affected stakeholders, particularly in an environment where the public sector doesn't have the money to do it. Okay, so let's see here. I think we're getting close to what I would hope would be the end here. And include language related to piping size and dead legs beyond the scope of the standard. It's a fair point, and I think what I'll do to just get people familiar with the fact that we do have what will be a superseded version of this. If I go to, here's the current edition, this will be superseded. I hope that ISEA can make this a commercial prospect, the next revision, but we as best we can, we try to insert more granularity in what some recommended practice might be, and we were suggesting that dead legs. So here's the appendices are not part of the standard but are included for information only. So a lot of times some concepts aren't ready to be put in prescriptive language, but they have merit, and so you try to sock them in here, and that's what we tried to do, and they rejected it, but maybe the time's not right for that. So let's see, are we anything else that I think we want to cover here? So I think that's the bulk of what came back to the University of Michigan, and I think that we may well be close to what I would consider to be the end of this month's update. It looks like the resolution we're going to be able to make here is that John, U of M, and ASHE will collaborate on an interim amendment that is informed by new data. Amendment. Do I spell that right? Amendment. Everybody who watches this tape can see me struggle with the spelling of that. Amendment. I think that's what, yeah, something like that. And let's just say if you need a year to get data, that would be, what did that say, by September, to be presented by September 2015. Lots of other stuff to do. There's other things going in the ISEA suite. I won't get into that right now. And that's the one resolution we can make here. I will tell you also that ISEA did ask for us to, this is Richard's, I don't know where Richard's going to go with this. So I said U of M make sure that he got a vote, but there's not been much communication there. So as far as the university response, we will not be withdrawing our vote. We will be asking, we'll persist in it. And I did talk to Bruce. Bruce will listen to this tape, and our vote. Go ahead.
Would it be appropriate for us to give our insight on whether we feel Richard should change his vote or not, or?
You could. Richard knows when these teleconferences are, and Richard has not been at these for several months now. So you're welcome. You're welcome. Please feel free to call them, to work with them independently on that if you like, and to do what you really feel like you need to do. And I think that just getting data, I also know, let me add this to here, is that Bruce will be coming by. So Bruce has the other vote. So Bruce will be presenting possibilities now being put in place at UMH for reducing the number of them, the number of eyewash stations. You probably don't know this. I might have mentioned to this at NFPA, but we have a 800-bed hospital. We have 580 eyewashes. That's something more than an eyewash station for every other bed, and that was what was being required. That's the way the rules were being interpreted by our local people here. So we're going to work a little bit on that, and he said he was unable to meet this to get to this teleconference because of a conflict, but he'll come and I will post this by October 22nd. So that's our show, John.
Great, appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah. So and I'll so if it's all right with you, I will get this posted and put this down here somewhere. It'll be down here somewhere. You can link it, and we'll upload it on YouTube. I guess I can go directly to YouTube unless you have any objection to that.
Not at all.
Okay, great. All right, Jonathan, so I will see you on the Worldwide Intertubes. It'll be before October 22nd, yeah?
Sounds good, Mike. Talk to you later.
Yeah, sure. Bye-bye.